What's up, guys? This is Brian at Whisper Status 74. You are looking at the G2 77-inch Gallery Edition. A special thank you to Robert and Wendy Zone of Value Electronics. Please consider making your next AV purchase. Check the description below for all of their information, website, location. They ship nationwide. I had the amazing opportunity to spend about 7 hours with the brand new G2 at 77 inches at their location after hours in a completely dark room. You've seen my C2 videos and my first couple G2 videos, but nothing really does it justice until you can actually sit with the panel yourself, especially in complete darkness, and use the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. With the G2, other than the structural differences, what we're looking at is a higher peak brightness as well as a heatsink. It is evident throughout this video and throughout all the time I've spent with it that it is a good deal brighter. What I like about the G2 is it is brighter in all presets, not just in one specific preset. Now, as you see me go through the settings on the new Horizon Zero Dawn, I'll be revisiting this game a little bit later in the video. But as you see me going through the game optimizer, which is amazing, you're able to alter the image however you like. The reason I know how much brighter this panel is simply because many of these games have been played on my 83-inch C1 and the new 55-inch C2, and I've had to alter all of the calibrations for each individual game simply because the G2 is that much brighter. Initially, some of the games looked very washed out. If you're familiar with gaming on OLEDs, many times when you go into the calibration tool of a specific game, you have to kind of really change it because the OLEDs aren't bright enough. Not the case here. It felt a lot like I was using an LED. And before you ask, the blacks have not been compromised. What I do love is you see me going through the optimizer is the best part about the optimizer is having presets within presets. Also, not having to leave the optimizer to go into the picture settings menu as you had to with the C1. As you see me changing the settings here. Also, when you're in, for the first time, at least for me, being with an OLED, an LG OLED, where dynamic tone mapping, I always liked, or not always, I do prefer having it on for that extra punch. The G2 being that bright, you can actually disable dynamic tone mapping, and it still looks punchy and bright. Where typically peak brightness takes a huge hit once dynamic tone mapping is disabled. Also, in a lot of these games, I actually prefer HGIG to dynamic tone mapping because the panel is brighter and HGIG actually stands out, meaning it has the brightness to really show that option. You'll see me jump through various titles. As I go into Dirt 5, what was interesting when I first popped this game in was the game looked very washed out. Having to go again back into the calibration tools of the specific game and the specific console. I spent time with both the Series X and the PS5. The Series X will follow this one. In this scene here, I did drop the brightness down. And once my own G2, as I've made up my mind to upgrade to the G2 at 83 inches, you'll see me cover some PC footage at my home. Now, even though the temperature has been changed in game mode to give it a warmer look, OLEDs do appear very cool on camera, so you will see a lot of bluish tint, and you will see a bit of black crush that isn't really present in person. What I also love, and I'll say this later on as well, is in the skybox, this is a very clean panel. No DSE, and more importantly, that hexagon kind of spider web screen door look is not there in the whites. LG has definitely figured that out. And it was a very clean experience. The PS5 is excellent, simply as there's so many titles to show you. The video was over an hour long. I actually trimmed it down to 25 minutes. Moving on to Souls, this game does appear very blue, and you will see some black crush as I get inside the cavern area here. But you can see the specular highlights popping. That's something you're going to hear a lot in this video, is the added peak brightness does make those specular highlights pop, which in OLEDs of the past wasn't really needed as the contrast ratio is so high. There is a thought of it being brighter even, that it's not there. This feels like it's there because it is. I like this level because on an OLED, it's supposed to go from light to dark. Where on an LED, this is where the blooming shows up on the HUD. That's what I love about OLEDs. You can go from completely bright to a very dark area. It's mysterious, and then when you come out of it, it's slow instead of an LED where you will have haloing around the HUD elements here. What I mean about OLEDs having a perceived brightness is that they seemed brighter than they were because of the contrast ratio. With these new brighter OLEDs, the A90J, the G2, it is there. It's actually brighter. Now, gaming on the A90J, which I thought was the best panel last year, I enjoyed gaming on it, but I didn't find its game mode to be that impressive in terms of its appearance. You can alter that appearance. But the G2 with the optimizer not only is bright in this preset, not just in a vivid mode, you have all the flexibility that LG offers. And back to the A90J, if you have an A90J, you can easily game on them. We say for casual gamers, you can game on any of the Sony OLEDs. But with the added peak brightness of the G2, as well as the extra HDMI 2.1 full bandwidth, and the flexibility with VRR, G-Sync, FreeSync, HDIG, it's really impossible to beat in this space for gaming. And the flexibility of size, you will have a 77-inch, which I'm on now, and an 83-inch. As we move into Street Fighter with some SDR gameplay, there was a lot of talk of SDR gameplay on OLEDs being too dark. I have not found that since the CX, the C1. It's definitely no problem with the C2 and the G2. I've made no adjustments to the aperture. None of that is being done in this video. Plenty bright. As we move on to Spider-Man, which looks absolutely phenomenal. I didn't put Miles Morales in simply because it's probably the one game on here that I have on disc, and I didn't bring it with me. But Spider-Man looks absolutely stunning. Look how clean the skybox is. Now, all this footage was filmed 4K 60. For those of you that ask, I do not use a capture card when filming. Yes, it is a camera showing you the display. A capture card would show you nothing but the game and not show you the actual panel. You get a lot of questions about that, filming TVs with cameras. There's really no other way to do it. It's more about the narrative. Now, I have a C1 at 83 inches. I am in this industry. I do have the opportunity to upgrade. Would I upgrade if I was like you guys just at home? Probably not, but considering I have the option to, the G2 for me is almost automatic. Simply because I'm in the industry and that I am going to be upgrading every couple of years. But if you have an older OLED from even a couple of years ago, you're still fine. My excitement, exuberance is just being an enthusiast, and I can sense and see the differences. This footage took me hours to take, not because it was arduous, simply because I had to lower the brightness in every single title on both consoles. That should tell you there how much brighter the G2 is. And for someone that uses HDIG here and there, the added peak brightness made me want to use HDIG more. Here you're looking at Ratchet and Clank. Now, unfortunately, being on the platform, I have many games, but not a lot of time to play them. I get teased a lot about being in the beginning of many games. Some of these games I've actually beaten, such as God of War, but have not had the chance to, or the save didn't transfer over. Ratchet and Clank, I beat both of those titles. But putting this footage together, PS5 has so many great games, it's hard to focus on just a few to put in here. Where the Series X, which is a great multiplayer machine and is a bit more powerful, it's kind of harder to find games to put on here for you. It is an amazing time for OLED technology. We have QD-OLEDs coming out. You'll see that very soon. Again, courtesy of Value Electronics. The X95K next week. We'll also game on that to see if the X95K and the Z9K, we'll see how if they disable local dimming during gameplay, where on an OLED you have no such compromise. And now that OLEDs are brighter, the brightness compromise has dissipated as well. There seems to be more color on these panels. This is the Evo panel. Absolutely beautiful. I can't tell you how pleased I am with it. Now, my biggest concern with the Evo, or I should say the G2, was it has a silver bezel. Looks beautiful. It's a little thicker on the sides, but the bezel on the front concerned me. Spending about 7 hours in the dark with it, wondering about reflections, no problem at all. You actually forget it's there. So if you have any concern about that little bezel that you've seen during my unboxings, I wouldn't worry about it. Here is Returnal, another beautiful game. The reason I want to show you this part is for ABL. Seeing how bright this is, now I've had this on every TV I've had here recently, it's amazing how bright this scene here is with the light off the ship. I'll go back to it in a second. It's the brightest I've seen versus the A80J, the C1, and the CX. And the panel does not dim. So we're getting to the point now, as other OLED technologies surface, that we do have this particular one solved. LG has gotten these types of OLEDs to an amazing place. Now the question for you guys is, QD-OLEDs from both Samsung and Sony going to pull you away? It's not a concern for me, simply because I'm at 83 in size. It'll be about 3 years, at least in my estimation, that we'll see a OLED, QD-OLED that size. Now Returnals, though it's only 1080p, stunning game, very punchy. Now back to Horizon Zero Dawn. You're going to see me go into the game optimizer and go into the settings here. I'm actually going to go into the actual game settings and show you how knocking down the brightness was what you needed to do to bring out the detail. You'll see the detail come back into the clouds, but a lot of times in OLEDs, you find you don't want to go too low on the brightness because they're not that bright anyway. The opposite here with the G2. I found that going lower really helped it. You can see the detail on the clouds. I personally like the gaming optimizer black stabilizer at 4. I like to knock it down because it retains the specular highlights, yet increases the contrast. You see, as I increase it, it can wash it out. Still looks great, but I do like a deeper image. Like many of you, I was concerned that brighter OLEDs would compromise the black levels, as we've seen raised blacks as much as last year. LG has mastered coming out of blacks. No floating blacks, no dithering, no problems that I had with my initial CX. The CX had definitely solved that by the end of its life. Again, looking into the skybox, I'll show you in the next Horizon Zero Dawn video. That was my test for vertical banding. No banding at all on this panel. Again, it is 77 inches. This panel also not cherry-picked. It's just one that is being calibrated. Now here, this scene from the original Horizon Zero Dawn that I actually like better. Right there where that sun is coming over that mountain, when we flip over to the other side, when you panned back and forth on my CX, I would see that right here. I would see that hexagon in the whites, and I would see banding, and I don't see any of that here. Doesn't mean it won't happen. You will still have banding on OLEDs, but not on this particular sample, and I was very impressed with it as I show you the different presets. Standard, sports, RPG, first-person shooter. So the flexibility of the settings is not found on any of the other panels. Game mode is typically game mode where the processing is disabled. I love how LG allows you to go in and tweak it per game. Samsung also has a gaming bar as well, but being that it's an OLED and it's not having to rely on local dimming or full array, we're not worried about that. As I go into this game, looks phenomenal too. I get back and actually play some of these. Days Gone, games being upgraded to 60 FPS. Again, large skybox, being able to see that there isn't any banding. Now I'll reiterate, we talk about the A80J, the A90J, the C1, the CX. Yes, for many of you, these are going to be subtle differences. I have a tech therapy video covering that. But our excitement is being able to see these panels side by side. I can see the differences. Is that enough for you to take a perfectly good panel from last year and buy a new one? I would say no. But I would say, being an enthusiast, I can appreciate the differences and deliver that excitement to you. Wipeout, excellent game. You can buy for about 20 bucks, has 3 games included. One of the first HDR games on the PS5, or the PS4, I should say. PS4 and PS4 Pro. If you don't have this one, grab it. $20, you get all 3 games. Looks amazing. Now, if you see motion issues while you're watching it, keep in mind, it is being compressed by YouTube. I'll try to get this to you at 4K 60, but it may be 4K 30. So don't feel there are no motion issues at all. The pixel response of OLEDs is very, very quick. Instantaneous, in fact. Where they struggled years ago is with games that were less than 60 FPS. They would appear blurry, but it seems to be much better in terms of the newer OLEDs than it was a few years ago. I personally don't engage any motion settings in gaming. As we move to, oh my God, this game's so good. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you this title here is when you come into the black area, when you get into the flames, turning around and showing you how bright it gets. And there are no tricks. There is no dropping of aperture. There's nothing to see if it's going to dim on you. God, I really have to play these games. As we pan around the camera, look how bright that is. The art direction, Ghost of Tsushima, phenomenal game. But again, you maintain the black level with that peak brightness. Watch how the flames pop over the mountainside. Absolutely stunning. So really getting the best of both worlds. You don't really have to compromise as much as we have in the past with OLEDs. As I show you the optimizer here, again, showing you the different options and how different you can make it look just with, and you can also alter these each individually. And we do hope Sony comes up with a cinema mode, but this is a real game changer. Now, Guilty Gear, phenomenal game. I think this is also SDR, absolutely beautiful. Now, I have to mention as well as Street Fighter V earlier wasn't updated for the PS5, and it still looks amazing. Playing something like Guilty Gear or Street Fighter or any of the Avenger/X-Men games, having these characters be a foot tall is awesome. But look at the color. You have this amazing artwork, movement, and then the specular explosions and sparks, and amazing. Now you're going to see more Black Crush on the camera again. But I have absolutely no complaints. Now, comparing the G2 to the C2, the very first comparison that we had done in the store with Robert and Shane from Spare Change, we had a 77-inch C2 versus G2. The problem is the room was well lit. We used the Spears and Munsell demo disc. Here, spending time in a completely dark room, having all the time in the world to mess around with the settings. And what I like about game mode too is you have the flexibility to change the image, but we're not really looking for accuracy here. We're in gaming. And other, Sony always had the best looking game mode with their LEDs. And though I liked gaming on the A90, I do prefer the way the LG's game mode looks this year. And the ability to change the image. Typically, like I said, with LEDs, you will disable so much of the processing that you lose the actual image quality. We've seen that from both Sony and Samsung. All right, guys. Well, I'll be doing the Series X next. We're getting back to some C2, X95K, Z9K, X90J, as well as the Samsung QD-OLEDs and the Sony QD-OLEDs. Can't wait to see them. Side by side, we'll be doing mini shootouts throughout the year. Again, special thank you to Robert Zone of Value Electronics. It's amazingly generous to have me spend that kind of time in the store after hours. Again, another SDR title. A lot of movement, a lot of bright highlights. Really, really beautiful. Again, if there was any problem with the G2, it was having to lower the brightness on all the games and changing all of the calibration. It is that bright. I do think that heatsink definitely is something that they're utilizing. So I'm very happy with it, enough to actually order one. And very pleased. And when I get mine home, you'll see a great deal more footage on it, and you'll see it also compared on PC and with games throughout the year. Really cool. Please let me know what you think in the comments. I am Brian at Whisper Status 74. Thank you guys so much for watching. We are working very hard this year to bring you this content, and it is so fun. But I really appreciate your kindness, your friendship, and I really appreciate you guys being there, especially as we premiere these videos live. Love you guys. Take care.